Good evening. I'm Shirley Esthimer, and this is Artspace. Magic, mime, theater, teaching, directing, creating, all of these words may be used to describe my guest tonight. Jim Vetter, welcome to Artspace.
Well, thanks for having me.
What would you do if you were at a cocktail party and a handsome man in a tuxedo walked up to you?
Shirley, have you ever seen one of these before?
Well, I've seen people folding them.
Right, just a little origami bird. Have you ever tried origami?
Yeah, on a very simple form, you know, just making little boxes.
If you tried it, then you may know that the really hard part of origami is not just folding. Do you know what the really hard part is?
No.
The really hard part is bringing it to life. Watch. This is actually kind of a pet of mine. Here we go. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Here we go, come on. He's a little shy, but actually...
First time on TV?
Absolutely. But, you know, sometimes when he's around a lovely lady, he gets, oh, here we go, a little bit excited. Come on, here we go. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah, right over here, right over here. You got it. But actually, you know, the hardest part is not just bringing it to life. You know what the hardest part is? You have a pet, don't you?
Yes, I have a dog.
Then you know the hardest part is training it. Here we go. Come on.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, that's great.
Right there, right there. Come here, come here. Come here. Right here, right here. Come on. Shirley, do you have very, very gentle hands?
Oh, very gentle indeed.
I bet you do. Can I borrow? Yeah, just make
Sure,
a little
sure.
nest, just like that. Here we go. And we'll just try right here. Right there. Oh, he likes you.
Ooh. May I keep him?
Oh, I'm afraid not. Here, I'm right back here. Actually, I've managed to teach him one trick. One big trick. Here we go. Come on. Right over here. Right over here. He's a little shy. Come on.
Oh, that's wonderful. And he takes bows.
There you go.
Great, great. And I can't believe this, but I've been told that you started this when you were 5 years old.
That's right. I was 5 years old when I learned my first magic trick.
Were you self-taught?
No, actually, my brother came home from school, and my brother's 3 years older than I am, and he had learned a card trick. And so he came home, and he was going to fool me completely with this card trick, which he did. He taught it to me, and I did it better than he did. Which wasn't great for brother relationships, but launched me on a new career.
Well, I also heard a rumor that when you went to high school that instead of taking gym, you took mime classes.
That's right. Yeah, actually, I was very lucky that I went to high school in Cambridge. At Cambridge, it used to be Cambridge High in Latin. It's now Cambridge Ringe in Latin. And they had an artist in residency program. So all through elementary school, I did magic shows. I did birthday parties, I did shows for the school. And then one summer, my folks took me to see a mime show, and I was absolutely blown away, because magic is all about creating illusions, creating the impression of something that can't possibly be true. And here I was, seeing somebody on stage who's creating a whole series of illusions just by using his body, without all the kind of props and trickery that I had to use for magic. I went and I found out his name. His name was Kenyon Martin. I went and tried to take classes with him, but I couldn't afford it. And turned out that fall, my high school hired the same performer as an artist in residence. I got to study with him the entire year, took mime classes for nothing, and got out of gym class to boot.
Well, you sort of answered my next question, which was, what was it about magic and mime that attracted you?
Well, I think in the beginning, particularly when I was in elementary school, it was just a nice way to get some recognition, to get some attention. And one thing I found teaching kids how to do magic is that in many ways, kids don't have a lot of power or a lot of control, that they're always teachers or parents or somebody telling them what to do. But in magic, you can teach a kid a magic trick and he can actually fool his own parents. And that's a very strong thing, a very powerful thing to be able to do.
But a positive thing, something.
Absolutely,
Something,
sure. That rather than
constructive, yeah.
having to act up in class and say nasty things, somebody can do a magic trick, and that's a way of getting some very positive attention for themselves.
Well, now you went to Yale University and attended the theater studies program. Now, what experiences did you have while you were at Yale that prepared you for what you're doing today?
Well, I think, in fact, that's one of the most important parts of being both a mime and being a magician. That some people seem to think that magic is only about the tricks. It's about how the tricks work. But magic is performing art. It's what's really much more important is creating the whole atmosphere around the trick, the acting that's part of the trick. And certainly in mime that's true as well, that mime is really about telling a story, just in the same way that a play is about telling a story. And these days, mimes do a lot more talking, do a lot more acting as well.
I heard, by the greatest stroke of luck, last week, I was listening to my shortwave radio, the BBC, because they have an arts program called Meridian, and they dedicated a whole half-hour program to the International Mime Festival. And then several days later, I called a friend of mine in London who was a theater critic and asked her what she'd been doing, and she said, well, I've been covering the International Mime Festival. And this is really apparently something that is very, very popular and all over the world. And that, I think the thing that interested me the most was that magic and mime are being used as therapy for people recovering from alcoholism and all kinds of problems. And they sort of call it the theater, a very physical form of theater.
Well, often
using the body.
Often when I'm working in schools, to do any kind of performing arts, to act, to do magic, to do mime, it's a chance for kids who may not be so good in math or English to really shine. For me, when I was growing up, I could hardly touch my toes. So sports was never a very strong point of mine, but I had a sense of being able to be out in front of people, a sense of performing. So I was able to take a mime class and actually learned how to use my body well through that. So I think it really can turn kids around in some ways.
Well, my daughter, I think perhaps when she was doing an internship, she's an expressive arts therapist with very disturbed children at Children's Hospital, did some body movement with them to make them feel better about themselves. They were suffering from anorexia and bulimia. Now, would that properly be called maybe a very primitive form of mime?
Sure.
Doing body movement?
Sure, because part of what mime is learning how to use your body expressively, to learn to really express yourself with your whole body rather than just your face or your words.
I tend to think, and perhaps other people do, of magic as being something that appeals to children, but you have found that it has great appeal for adults.
Yes, very often when I'm doing magic, I'm hired by corporations, companies who'll be having, say, a big dinner and will want some real entertainment at the end of the dinner. Prime Computer Company hired me several times to do that, brought people in from around the world. Or a company will be having a cocktail party. And they just want something to really spice it up, to really make it a lot more lively place. And I think that often for adults, it brings back a sense of that kind of joy and wonder that's a lot easier for kids to have. I'm sorry, Shirley. For instance, I don't mean to embarrass you at all, but did you?
Why, is there a problem?
Well, no. Did you happen to see when you sat down here what that is that you were sitting on?
Oh, my glasses, probably.
No, actually, I meant right. Yeah, right. Right in there.
For heaven's
Shirley,
sakes.
do you know what that is?
Well, it looks like a ball made out of what, foam?
Sure, it looks like a little, like maybe a little Nerf ball. But do you know what that really is?
Well, no, I hope you're not saying that I'm a Nerf.
No, not at all.
Oh,
in fact,
all right.
What this is actually kind of an alien creature from outer space.
Oh.
Do you know how you can tell?
I was sitting on it and I didn't even know it?
It's scary, isn't it?
Whoa, this is awesome.
Do you know how you can tell that that's an alien creature?
No.
It's because, Shirley, alien creatures never travel alone. No, they always come. If you look nice and close here, you can see that they never travel alone. They always come. There's always at least two. And you know, the reason why these alien creatures they're really horrible to have as pets. They're horrible to have around because they will never stay where you put them. Say you come into your house late one night, you discover you've got one of those alien creatures, say in your bedroom, there's one of them in the living room. What happens is that as soon as it gets dark, they start to crawl. Surely I hate that part. They go right from one place, right to another. You see, just like that. Shirley, would you help me out for just a moment?
Sure. What would you like me to do?
What I need is just to use your hand for a moment.
All right.
Can I borrow? What I want you to do is just grab a hold of the alien creature and just hold it tight. Just hold it tight. Yeah, just right out here. And don't let it go. And then, actually, if you'd also just blow. Right on this one. Ooh. Shirley, did you feel that happen?
Well, I felt a sense of powerful motion there.
Absolutely, because you know what happened when you blew?
What?
This little alien creature shot up through my sleeve, went down through my pants. That's kind of the cheap thrill of the show. Went right across the floor, went right up through your pants, down through your sleeve, went right from here. Shirley, would you bring your hand right over to the center here and just open it up nice and wide?
Oh, my goodness.
But you know, Shirley, actually, can I use your hand just a second again? What I want you to do is actually grab both of them. Hold them tight. Don't let them go under penalty of death, just like this. Put your hand right down just over here.
Serious business.
Because this is actually kind of a lesson in alien biology. Do you know what happens if you take two aliens and you put them someplace like your hand, where it's kind of warm and dark?
More aliens?
Shirley, when you opened up your hand before, how many little aliens did you have?
2.
Honestly, how many do you think you have now?
100.
100. Take your hand, just open it up nice and wide.
Not quite 100, but almost. Almost. That's fabulous.
So you can imagine at a cocktail party. That,
So I can understand then why adults get as much pleasure as children. That's incredible. Now, I was interested to hear that you had worked with George Plimpton and wrote a special piece when Harvard University was celebrating their 350th anniversary.
That's
How
right.
did that come about?
Well, I was teaching at a school, an art school in Nantucket, and I got a whole series of calls from different people from the Harvard 350th Committee asking me if I'd be interested in working with George Plimpton. And I was dazed, amazed. They wanted a piece. It was a stadium full of 32,000 people. And they wanted a mime piece, 10 mimes, performing about student life at Harvard. Plimpton wrote the words, and I came up with the choreography. And I was there on the phone going back and forth with him about the script. And I couldn't believe that George Plimpton was listening to my editorial comments about his writing. I thought that was just incredible. And we did this enormous show, which was very successful. Although at the time, I couldn't tell whether I was doing a good job or not, because I had no idea what polite applause from 32,000 people would sound like. So here I was in this huge stadium, and there was all this applause, and I'm thinking, is that good?
I understand that there's something about you that people cannot resist coming to you and handing you
Some
a
money.
dollar bill. I don't know what it is about you. I wish I knew the secret.
All right.
I'd be,
May I show you something incredible?
yes.
Something truly amazing?
Absolutely.
All right. I just need to borrow that $1 bill. Now, Shirley, if I was honestly a magician, if I could honestly do anything at all in the world to your dollar bill, what would you want me to do? If I could do absolutely anything.
Oh, make me a rich woman.
That's good.
So I wouldn't have to do TV for nothing.
Yeah. Well, you know, actually, if somehow I could really take this dollar bill that you just lent me, and I could change it into a larger bill, then I probably wouldn't work for a living either. But Shirley, I hate to tell you, my problem with money is just the opposite. When I get money in my hands, it doesn't start to get bigger. No, it usually starts to get smaller and smaller, so that you really have to watch carefully, because soon it seems as though it's almost not even there. But you know, if I really was a magician, and Shirley, you said you wanted me to make the bill larger, well, then I would have to find a way to change that. Say, would you settle for, say, a $100 bill?
Oh, I certainly would. Thank you very much.
Well, actually, there's only one problem. You see, what you just saw here, this was what they call a get-rich-quick scheme. And in a get-rich-quick scheme like this, now it may look great in the beginning, but what you discover is that when you go to spend this money, you'd be lucky to even have back just the dollar investment that you put in the first place.
That's great. Now, I understand you have written a wonderful show for children called That's How I Feel. And I wonder if you might share a few moments of that show with us.
Certainly, I'd love to.
Great, we'll be back in a minute.
This is a story about a little girl named Mora. Now, Mora was a very special girl. She had beautiful, long black hair, and she loved to wear a crisp white blouse, a red plaid jumper, and shiny, shiny black shoes. But the people who knew Mora, none of those things were what people would notice most about Mora. What people noticed first about Mora was her smile. Because Mora smiled all the time. Now, I don't mean a lot of the time. I don't mean most of the time. Mora smiled all the time. No matter what was happening, no matter how she was feeling inside, Mora just kept on smiling. First thing in the morning, when Mora was sitting down at breakfast, and her little brother stuck 3 fingers right into the jar of Skippy peanut butter, smeared it all over the side of Mora's head, Mora kept smiling. Waiting for the bus out with all the other kids. One morning, a big gust of wind came up and blew all of Mora's books and papers into the mud. But Mora, on the playground, when Big Alan came up, but you know, the more Mora kept smiling, even when she was feeling something else inside, the more she started to feel something start to grow inside of her. And now Mora had never seen this terrible thing, but she knew just what it looked like. Well, the more Mora kept smiling, even though she was feeling other things, the bigger the beast started to grow. And soon it started to show itself. In the morning, when Mora was drinking her orange juice and her little brother stuck 4 fingers right into the jar of jelly, smeared it all over the side of her head, that beast grabbed Mora's orange juice glass and smashed it to the ground. On the playground, when Big Alan came back again, that beast reached out one huge claw and swiped right at a first grader who was swinging on the swings, sent him flying all the way into the parking lot. Mora knew that soon that beast would come out more and more. She knew that something had to be done. So that night, Mora waited until everyone else was asleep. And she opened up her window. And Mora climbed out into the moonlit night. On Mora walked, past Craig's house and Rachel's, and Jose's. On she walked, past everything she knew. On she walked, all the way to the edge of town until she came to the old woman's house. Now all the kids had heard of the old woman. Some said that she was a witch. Some said that she was a magic healer. Some said she was just a crazy old lady. But everyone agreed this was a place they would never go alone. Maura knocked.
Oh, come right in, my dear. Don't be frightened. I've been expecting you.
Expecting me? How can you have been expecting me? I didn't know I was going to come. I didn't tell anybody.
Let's just say that I thought you'd come to visit sooner or later. Now, what can I do for you?
But Maura had no words to say how she was feeling.
I can see in your face what the problem is. You have something trapped deep inside of you. You need some help in getting it out. But my help might not be quite what you expect.
I'm not frightened. I'll try anything.
Very well.
And the old woman reached into her pocket and she handed Maura a crumpled old piece of paper.
Read this out loud.
And so Maura read. The words made no sense to her, but as she started to say them aloud, they had a strangely familiar feeling. And then it started to happen. Maura started to feel things that she'd never felt before. All of a sudden, everything started to change. The ground started to shake underneath her. The walls began to move. And then, in front of her, Maura saw a giant mound.
Take a step back and see.
And as Maura stepped back, she saw not one mound, but two. They were two enormous black shoes. And above them, she saw the body of a gigantic little girl. A girl with shiny black hair and a crisp white blouse, a red plaid jumper, and those two black shoes.
Those words have taken you outside of yourself. And you are so small now that you can go inside yourself and have a look. Are you ready for a journey?
And the old woman reached down one enormous finger, and Maura climbed on board. And the woman lifted her up and set her right on the edge of her own ear. It was dark inside, but Maura took a step. She took another step, and then her feet slipped, and she fell! And she landed someplace warm and dark and slimy and wet. Maura couldn't see a thing, but all around her she could feel passageways heading off in all directions. Maura didn't know which way to go. And then she heard it. A sound. A terrible sound.
Mora had come all this way to meet the beast, but now that she heard it, Mora gathered up all her courage and turned to face the beast, and there it was. But as Mora looked at it closer and closer, she could see that the beast had peanut butter smeared in its hair, and jelly, and there was mud on its hands from the puddle in the books, and a big handprint where Big Allen had hid it. And as Mora watched, the beast changed until all she saw in front of her was the face of an angry little girl. And suddenly Mora found herself back in her own bedroom. The window was open with the moonlight streaming in, and all she could hear was the sound of her breathing and the beating of her heart. And then, from that day on, Mora didn't smile all the time anymore. Now, when she was happy, she'd smile or she'd laugh. But sometimes she got sad. And sometimes she was angry. But they say that now, when Mora smiled, it was the biggest, most beautiful smile anyone had ever seen.
Jim, that was just wonderful. And I'm wondering and thinking that people who are seeing this show might want to look into getting some funding to do this show locally. Can you tell me about that?
There are actually a couple of different funding sources, state funding sources. One is the Arts Lottery, that lots of schools and community groups will do Arts Lottery applications and get me in that way. And also there's a program called the PASS program that schools can use particularly to go to a performance of mine, and that's also a state funding source. Also, different groups are now using my show as a fundraiser for their group.
Oh, I wanted to mention that fundraising. That's kind of a unique way to raise funds. I know with my Simmons alumni group, we're always looking for ways to raise money. This would be a very charming way to do it.
Right, I'm doing a whole series of shows around the state right now where different groups are doing that, exactly, bringing me in and using the ticket price as a way to raise funds for their group.
That's super. Well, I want to thank you so much. You've given up a whole afternoon of your very valuable time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And I want to thank all of you for watching Artspace. I'm Shirley Esthimer. Good night.